Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Simple Interrupted. I'm your host, Mary Schwartz, and we are on a podcast where we're going to dig into what life is like in veterinary clinics. What are the real things that you're facing, and how can we help or improve those real issues that you're dealing with? I have with me today one of my favorite folks, just total ball of joyous energy, Dr. Sarah Wooten. Dr. Wooten, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Hi, my name is Sarah Wooten, and I am a licensed veterinarian in the state of Colorado. I've been in the industry for a long, long time, and one of my passions is client communication.
You've also done some other really fun things in your time. One game that we played in my clinic as a team constantly, Vets Against Insanity, one of the most fun games out there for veterinary clinics. How did you dream up that concept?
Oh, I actually I did it in Uvalde, the Women in Veterinary Leadership Development Initiative from the AVMA, and I was
Mhm.
just looking for new fun ways for adult learning, and I was like, wait a second, what if we did a game? And then it just went from there. So
Just took off.
yeah, yeah, and that plus I have a really twisted, dirty mind, so that helps.
I think that's common for the industry. I think it's like the prerequisite for
Yeah.
getting in. You have to have that kind of sense of humor. So
Hmm.
well, what I want to talk with you about today is communication in practice, specifically, veterinarians communicating with clients. I think a lot of times we see gaps in that communication because with veterinarians and veterinary technicians, people who have a lot of medical education, we can oftentimes go in the room and kind of spew medical jargon or even make clients feel judged. And what are some ways that we can fix that? Why do we do that? And how do we stop it?
Well, I think so. I think at the very base of all of it is we have good intentions and we have
Hmm.
a lot of knowledge and we're helpers. We really want to help. Like, I don't know about you, but if you're ever in just like a conversation in the real world and you hear people talking about like something veterinary related, it's like everything I can to be like, I want to help, there's something I want to
Hmm.
say. So I think it's just in our nature that we want to help and we want to control the conversation in a way that we think that we're going to have a good benefit or outcome for this patient. But it's not always, sorry about that. It's not always the most helpful way to actually communicate with these people,
Hmm. What have you found in
especially
your
when it
experience?
supplements.
Yeah, 100% when it comes to supplements. And that's one of the bigger things too, because it's such an unregulated, more broad topic. How do you kind of approach that with clients?
Well, before I get into that, I just want to paint a picture that I think all of us can relate to. I think
Hmm.
every veterinary professional has had that moment where a client walks in and they're carrying like this Trader Joe's bag that's stuffed to the top with the supplements, and then you know immediately that you're about to spend like 20 minutes talking about powdered elk velvet and medicinal mushrooms and fish oil and CBD and something called adrenal support,
Hmm.
and like somehow that bag of supplements costs more than the entire exam. And I've been in veterinary medicine for over 20 years at this point, and I can tell you these conversations or these things where the clients bring all these supplements in for evaluation, they're not rare. It's like Tuesday, right? It happens every
Yeah.
Tuesday, and sometimes there's 3 Tuesdays in one Tuesday. So um, when it comes to these conversations, I have found that the goal is to not shut that conversation down. It's to
Hmm.
guide it without breaking trust. Because I do think most clients, just like vets, are coming from a really good place. They're trying to help. They want to feel proactive. They want to feel like they're doing something meaningful for their pet that they love. And so when it comes to supplements, this is hard because supplements feel to clients very safe and very easy. They
Hmm.
feel natural and supportive and low risk. And if you think about it emotionally as like a human, it's easier to start a supplement than start a prescription medication. Like the mental barrier to prescription medication can just be higher. And
Oh yeah.
then you also have all the advertising in the internet that's out there screaming 24 hours a day, right? Clients are seeing TikToks, Facebook groups,
Mm-hmm.
influencers, Amazon reviews, Reddit threads, Substacks, neighbor recommendations, breeder recommendations. And half of the time, by the time they actually get to us, they've already heard 20 different opinions.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think it's helpful to remember that most supplement conversations are not really about medicine. They're about control and hope and trust. And so
Yeah.
when we have these conversations, we tend to make a couple of mistakes, like collectively as veterinary
Mm-hmm.
professionals, just because we haven't, I think, been set up for success really well on how to have these conversations. So, and most of these conversations, and I've watched my colleagues with these conversations, it's so funny because like, it's so hard to not have the eye roll, right? It's just like
Yes.
the medicinal mushrooms come out and you're like,
It's
no,
so hard.
right?
But that same client is seeing like 18 ads on TikTok about how that same mushroom powder cured every cancer in this
Yes,
dog. So they're like
yes.
thinking, to your point, it's hope. They're like, I really think that this might be something that can help my pet. And now you have to be the one to inject reality without losing an important relationship.
Right? We get to be the vibe killer. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So, so the common mistakes, I think, let's just go through those really quick before we talk about what could be better, right?
Yeah.
Is just shutting that conversation down too fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just you see the bag of supplements and your barrier's up, you're done. We're not talking about this, right? You're here for
Mm-hmm.
medicine. Gosh darn it. And then the second one is you already talked about it, is using that medical jargon that we all
Mm-hmm.
spent so much money acquiring our second language. And we want
Mm-hmm.
to feel like the authority. And so, it feels really like an authority to say things like pyoderma, or whatever, blepharospasm, right? I paid a lot of money for that word. So
Yep.
using jargon is the number one, because that just creates oh, I don't know what they're talking about barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads to the next one, is unintentionally making the client feel dumb
Mm-hmm.
for, thinking about trying these supplements. And then all of that together kind of creates these bad vibes that make it impossible to have a constructive conversation around supplements. And I think it's funny because like there's nothing that you can do to make people feel bad more quickly than to poo-poo something that they already spent money on.
Oh
And
yeah.
I had a client, right? I had a client come
Mm-hmm.
in one time with a whole grocery bag of supplements for her lab. She had the joint chews, the mushroom powder, right? The fish
Yep.
oil, the calming treats, the probiotics, the CBD. Like, honestly, this dog had a more comprehensive wellness routine than I did at the time. And early career me, God bless her, because she got me here. But she said something like, well, most of this probably isn't doing anything, and all you're doing is just making really expensive pee, which is
Oh.
true.
Yes,
But
technically, not
technically
incorrect. I'm
true.
sure the client received it super well.
Oh, well, you could just like feel her like hopeful, open vibe just go,
Oh,
right? Because
yeah.
what she heard was not, let's evaluate these products critically. What she heard was, you wasted your money and you're a bad dog mom. Even though I didn't
Mm-hmm.
say that, that's what she heard.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was the moment that I realized being medically correct and being effective are not always the same thing. And so after I professionally lit that client relationship on fire, I realized I needed a better system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to your point earlier, the last thing you want to do is make someone feel dumb. I know that if I feel really stupid, A, I'm not going to ask clarifying questions, right? Which is one of the most important things in that VCPR. You want the client to come to you and ask clarifying questions so that they can understand their pet's health better. But I'm also
Yeah.
might not come back. If I feel like you think I'm dumb, I'm probably not going to come back to you. I'm going to go to somebody who wants to build a collaborative care relationship with me and at least hears me out and has a conversation rather than shutting me down.
100%. That is humanity 101 right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how we work. Um, Yeah. So basically, after doing it wrong a whole bunch of times, I finally decided that I was going to try something different. So now, when I talk about supplements to people, or anything medical, right? Anything that's going to be, oh, you thought this was going to work, but actually, no, this is what's going to work. I mentally run through 3 quick steps that keep that conversation collaborative instead of confrontational or just shut down. So the first one I always do is validate. I validate the client. So obviously they're trying. Obviously they spent all this time, money, and probably hours on the internet or talking to ChatGPT about all these supplements.
Now it's
And they
talking to ChatGPT or Claude for sure.
exactly, or Gemini, because who has time for Google searches anymore? But and Claude is so much smarter than Chat. But we're not going to talk about that here. So anyway,
we'll leave the Claude convo for another day.
Exactly. That's a different podcast entirely. So first I validate. So I say things like, I just say something that validates their effort and their care. I say, I love that you're thinking proactively about your pet's health. Good job. Or I'll say, I can really tell that you're trying to do the best thing for your dog. And I love that you're being proactive, right? So just really kind of grease the wheel with, hey, I really admire your mindset, and that's actually going to be helpful moving forward. Like one time I had a poor lady come in with this little white fluffy dog. I don't know, it was something white and fluffy, but it wasn't white and fluffy when it came in. It was red and scaly and no hair and smelled quite interesting. Turned out it had a raging pyoderma and a yeast dermatitis. And she
every infection possible.
All of them, all of the infections, all at the same time. All the bugs were having like the massive party on this dog's skin and going, woohoo, right? They were out of control. And so she told me, she was like, well, I read somewhere that coconut oil was, the treatment for this. So I've just been rubbing the whole dog in coconut oil.
If you haven't picked up an animal that's been slicked down with coconut oil in your career, you haven't been doing vet med long enough.
No, right? Not at all. She's like, I've been putting it on the dog, all over the dog for 10 days, and it just seems to be getting worse. And I was like, well,
I couldn't possibly think of any reasons why.
So I said, well, you've been trying this, and obviously, I mean, you've really been trying, so good job, but it doesn't seem to be working very well. So let's explore some other things. And she was like, okay. So, I didn't immediately, I tried to keep the straightest face possible. I was like, I'm not going to laugh. I'm not going to laugh. I save all that laughter for here. So so you validate them, right? Another thing, like if they come in and they have all these questions about these different supplements, I validate the confusion that's out there. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. Makes total sense that you'd want some help sorting through it. That's what I'm here for. I am your friendly neighborhood supplement sorter, right? Yeah. And why this really works is it immediately takes their defensiveness down. So especially with the poor lady with the red little dog, I'm sure she was already embarrassed that the dog looked the way it did and that what she was doing wasn't working. So that could have very easily gone a different way as far as the conversation. But because I was like, let's say something to make you less defensive, then your mind's going to open up and then we can have a conversation. So validate them. First of all, hey, this could potentially become a unicorn client because obviously they're already spending the money somewhere. So let's get them spending the money in the right place.
Yes. 100%.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that I do is I try to translate. And again, I understand we have limited amount of time in the exam rooms to talk to these people. So even though this seems like this is a big process, it's not really. You can go through this pretty fast. So translate. What I say is I take a look at the supplement and I go, well, here's what we actually know about this ingredient. And then I just share what I know. And I keep it really simple. And I don't say this is garbage. So this is trash. I don't say that. I say
Yeah.
things like, evidence is limited about this particular ingredient, or this is where it may help. Or I'll say something like, there's actually some interesting research on this ingredient, but the results are not more modest than the marketing makes them sound. Because sometimes people need help translating marketing claims.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
then, sometimes I'll say, this supplement's probably not harmful for most dogs, but we want to make sure that we're using something with good quality control, and we want to have realistic expectations about what this can do. Because people
Mm-hmm.
are often really disappointed when it comes to supplements, because they're not educated on the way in, and their expectations are too high.
Yeah. And they're pitched this like cure all for everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that I found in practice that really helped was helping clients understand that nutraceuticals are not regulated at all. And so putting them in that kind of mindset of understanding that they might have been a little bit of a victim instead of
Mm-hmm.
they're stupid, but they might have instead been a victim, can
Mm-hmm.
also help with that kind of opening of the mind and being willing to listen and hear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you can just point towards the marketing does make this confusing
Mm-hmm.
um, bit, then the blame, is shifted elsewhere, which again facilitates your conversation in the moment, which is what you're
Yeah.
really trying to do. So once I've translated a little bit for them, and usually I'll also throw in a little line like, so I'll ask them, is it okay if I tell you what I know about this? And then sometimes they're like, yeah. And then sometimes I'll throw a little joke in there. I'll be like, you're paying me for this, so I might as well give you what you paid for, right? And then they'll go, ha ha ha,
Yep.
yeah. so,
Yep.
and you're adding value to what you can give that client as well, because you're giving them the education that they don't
Mm-hmm.
have in a very collaborative manner.
Yes.
So after I've translated a little bit on this, then I can move to the guiding. And when you guide people about supplements, it's not about, again, shutting down that conversation or supplement use in general, shutting it down. It's about redirecting it.
Yeah.
So one way you could redirect it, say they want to do a joint supplement, and they're using something that is questionable, right? And you're not familiar or comfortable, and you go, you do any of your research and you're like, I just don't know if that's going to give you what you're looking for. You could say something like, if we're going to use something, because obviously this client already wants to use supplements, you could
Mm-hmm.
say, if we're going to use something, here's what I'd recommend. So redirect, don't reject.
Yes. Yeah.
Redirect.
Yeah. Here's what I'd recommend and why I've chosen to recommend this specific
Yeah.
supplement over the one that you chose, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, manage expectations, because this is
Mm-hmm.
where clients can really, they'll get upset when their baby isn't getting better. And the last thing they'll remember is, well, the vet told me to use this. And of course, they're going to project some blame onto you instead of the supplement.
Yep.
So always make sure that you are anchoring yourself into uh, a guidance that is using the correct language, so that you are giving them options but protecting yourself at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, no more angry clients. And then just lastly, when it comes to these conversations, you don't win by being right. I know we
Mm-hmm.
really want to be right. I really want to be right. It's one of my favorite things. But in these conversations, you don't win by being right. You win by staying in the conversation, because that's the relationship that's going to continue, and they're going to keep coming back to you, and that pet's going to get care.
Yeah, I think in this instance, winning is next time that a client wants to start a supplement, maybe they text your practice and ask what you think instead of showing up with the giant bag. I think that
Yeah.
becoming a more collaborative partner in the pet's care is the real win, not whether or not you are right in the moment, because we all know that you're right in the moment, right? Like we know that the supplements by and large are not going to be super effective. They're not well researched, and there's tons of marketing around them to seem like they're miracles. But if you can get your clients to come back to you specifically for that advice, that is a real, real big win.
Absolutely. And again, the goal in that is to avoid sounding anti-supplement, but
Hmm.
having a clear, authoritative voice that's also balanced. So you can say things like, some of these supplements may have a role. Many of them are poorly studied. The
Hmm.
messaging around these supplements is often the real problem. And one clean line that you can take away from this and use it if you want is, it's not that supplements are bad or all bad. It's just that most of them are poorly understood and
Hmm.
poorly communicated.
Yep. This framework is something that can be used for almost any communication with your clients too, right? Like I know we're drilling down in supplements right now, but if you really think about it, anything that your clients are coming in for and you're struggling with communicating with them about, take this framework, right? Everybody, especially when it comes to pets, right? We all feel like these pets are a part of our family, at least especially in younger generations now, they're really considered a family member and not just a pet. So validating that person's feelings, why they think something is happening with their animal, why they've chosen to treat it with bathing the whole pet in coconut oil, whatever that might be, right? Validating where that emotion comes from, and then making sure you're not spewing medical jargon and then guiding them to the correct solution or the one that might be most beneficial for their pet. I mean, this can be applied to anything.
Absolutely. Veterinary professionals could use that framework, and it could be really helpful for a lot of conversations because in it, it helps you bring the conversation back down to earth without making clients feel embarrassed about the situation in the first place.
Yeah, don't make your clients feel any way that you wouldn't want to feel if you were in their shoes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and honestly, if we're talking about supplements for a second here, we're talking about the messaging between the veterinary client patient relationship, but there's
Hmm.
a whole nother layer to this supplement conversation now, which is the marketing side of it.
Hmm.
Because somewhere along the line, like all these supplements became clinically proven or vet recommended and apparently capable of like solving world peace. Um, Meanwhile, like the actual study was like 12 dogs and one of them dropped out halfway through.
Yep.
So, and the other thing that's really confusing for clients that we as veterinary professionals have to remember is the testimonials can get
Hmm.
wild. The before and afters can get wild. You'll see things like my 14-year-old lab took this for 3 days and now he's doing parkour.
Yep.
So I don't think these companies are trying to be shady per se. I think people get excited and marketing teams get enthusiastic, and the line between the education and the claims gets blurry really fast. Um,
Yes.
so, again, that's where these conversations that we're having with our clients as the veterinary professionals are so important to help them be able to translate that into what is really going to help my pet.
It's also important to remember that clients don't always understand what good evidence looks like, right? So they do see all those testimonials and they think, man, this thing has 17,000 five-star reviews and all these animals cured and all these things. When that's a very subjective level of evidence, right? That's very much could be complete coincidence in many instances. So really understanding, our clients are not trained very often in understanding scientific evidence in the way we are. And that's a whole nother topic I could go off on. I think every human being should be taught how to understand what truly scientific evidence looks like in high school. Like that should be just baseline education. But because it's not, it then unfortunately falls to us to have those conversations of what does a truly scientific, peer validated study look like? And then to your point earlier, what can you really expect from this supplement? And, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Absolutely. And again, it's just hard because marketing is built to be
Mm-hmm.
persuasive. And so yeah, again, you're going to have these conversations all the time. Well, all the time. You're probably having them right now. If you're watching this podcast, you'll probably walk out and the next appointment that you see, they're going to have CBD oil or something. So
Yep.
um, just use this framework and it's just going to help. It's going to help you go through this entire process, this conversation and experience, and you're going to be able to build these connections with these clients, and it's going to feel more fulfilling, and you're going to feel more like you're actually helping these people, because again, they are lacking what you just said that the human race needs, Mary, which is how to actually evaluate scientific evidence. And so that's again where we stand in the gap, and we do our job and we don't judge. And the last thing, just as an aside for mental well-being, I try to go into these conversations slightly amused versus slightly annoyed. So if you go in slightly amused, everything kind of flows in a slightly different way, and you kind of look at the client like, oh, I've got to take care of her.
Yes.
Instead of, this is so stupid, I'm so tired of this conversation. And it's just it's a better vibe. It's a better feeling. It's a better way. So that's my little plug for mental well-being.
100%. You might go home a little bit happier today than you did yesterday.
Maybe.
If you can kind of change that mindset a little bit. So if you take nothing else away from this conversation, validate, translate, and guide. Those are your 3 steps to having that communication around supplements and really anything else in your practice with your clients. Those are the 3 core steps that are going to get you where you need to go. Dr. Wooten, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on.
Bye, everybody.